words alone don't make something. So we had to issue metrics and talk about when we'll get there. We had to change the culture of the company. We had to change everything we were doing.
There's the Pepsi generation, and then there's the Indra Nooyi generation. Since becoming CEO in 2006, Indra has remade the soft drink icon. One key metric, just 25% of Pepsi's sales today come from soda, and it's as committed to sustainability as it is to snacking. Now Indra's out to change more than just Pepsi. She recently announced plans for the next 10 years, performance with purpose as Pepsi calls it, and threw down the gauntlet to other CEOs to do more than just make money. You just released your 10-year performance with purpose plan. With your plan, you've really laid out explicit things that you want to hit, goals that you intend to meet, and this is the second time you've done it. So can you go back 10 years ago when you did your first performance with a purpose plan and talk about why you decided to build it and how you got the company to come along with what you were doing?
As companies, we operate with a license from society. It's very important that we worry about the communities and societies we operate in. As I became CEO in 2006, I started to think about what kind of a company we wanted to build. And it became clear to me that PepsiCo would always deliver great financial performance. But with the changing world, with the millennials having very different expectations of companies, it was critical that PepsiCo also becomes a company that cares for the communities and societies it operates in, besides its own people. So what is performance with purpose? Performance is performance. But underlying performance are three sustainability planks. The first is human sustainability. How do we make sure we have a portfolio of products that are nutritious, that have lower fat, sugar, and salt than our existing portfolio because consumer tastes were changing? Second plank is environmental sustainability. How do we make sure we use less water in our operations? And the third was our people plank, talent sustainability. How do we create an environment in the company where people can bring their whole selves to work? We had to change the frame of reference to say it's not how we spend the money we make, it's how we make money. So performance with purpose was born. But words alone don't make something. So we had to issue metrics and talk about when we'll get there. Because these are not short-term programs, these are long-term programs where we had to put R&D money behind it. We had to change the culture of the company. We had to change everything we were doing.
Someone came to you and said, Indra, our numbers are through the roof. We're going to have incredible sales, but we didn't meet the environmental metrics. We didn't hit these other areas that we did. You would be disappointed?
I would be disappointed. You know why? Short-lived performance doesn't do any good. If we didn't reduce our water usage, it's just a matter of time before our plant gets shut down in water-distressed communities because there are so many of them around the world. If we didn't address sustainability in our supply chain, sustainable agriculture, it's just a matter of time before NGOs are outside our office protesting and forcing us to be shut down in various countries of the world. So I often ask my employees the question, if I were to take all of those bottles and put it in your backyard, would you like it? Absolutely not. If you won't like it, we can't put it in anybody else's backyard. So let's reduce the plastic use and let's figure out a way to recycle it. So if you put it in those terms, people get it. I'll go so far as to say that the millennials today come to work at PepsiCo because of performance with purpose. Because of performance with purpose.
So you've got the next 10-year plan that you're releasing. How is it different, or what did you learn from the first 10-year plan that changed how you think about this one?
In many ways, the next 10-year plan is a continuation of the first 10 years, with some changes. What are the changes? In the first 10-year plan, I would say we accomplished fully about 60% of the goals. 40% still a work in process, but we have until 2020 to get there. What we're doing now is refining a lot of the goals because we've now been informed by the WHO goals, Institute of Medicine goals, the Sustainable Development Goals. So we've got all of these external bodies that have articulated goals. So we've used that to inform our goals so that we are lockstep with those goals and we're actually helping multilateral organizations move their agendas forward as opposed to all of us doing our own thing. So we've been informed by these goals. Second, the first set of goals related largely to key countries. Now we're saying key countries is not enough. We've got to do it for the world as a whole. The third is, in the last 10 years, all our investments in R&D, in new packaging, how we think about the environment has evolved enormously, because that was an experiment when we started in 2006. Today, we are much more informed, educated, and aware of what needs to get done. So all of that thinking has been incorporated into these goals. It's a 10-year goal. It cannot be done in 1 or 2 years because we need technology breakthroughs. But what it does is it provides a blueprint for our efforts. It says, you have to focus on this. You cannot not focus on this. So it gives our people a clear roadmap to what we need to do to be successful well into the future.
And do you have to do a cultural change again within Pepsi, or because this is a continuation, you feel like the company is already there?
I'll give you the good news and the bad news. The good news is that if we change direction away from performance with purpose, I will lose a lot of good people. It is so ingrained in every part of the company today. And that's what makes me so emotional about this, because anywhere I go, it's performance with purpose. That's how people live their lives. The few holdouts, about 3 or 4 years ago, I told them that the time for holdout is gone rather. Because you can hold out for a while, it's okay, because it's good to have these skeptics, because trying to convince them to change is a great learning experience. But at some point, you've got to say, it's time for retirement parties. And those holdouts, we've been retiring them one by one. And they've got to go, because you can't poison a good thing. And right now, I think we're at a point in PepsiCo where performance with purpose is the purpose of this company. And that's where we are focused on, that's where we focused all our effort.
Well, in your letter announcing this, you went beyond Pepsi. You said this is the only way for someone to run a multinational company in the 21st century. So it sounds like what you're saying is not, this is just great for Pepsi, but if other CEOs don't get on board with this, they're not going to be able to actually make it today. Were you trying to send that kind of a call?
Most certainly, yes. I think today, where the world is, the issues we're facing around the world, and the fact that we don't have money available in government exchequers, I think it's critically important corporations step up and do a lot more than just say the almighty buck in the short term. We cannot keep passing costs on to governments. Governments don't have the money to fight it. We cannot keep passing issues, kicking it down the road, because somebody else is going to have to address it. If you go back to the laws of limited liability when corporations were formed, we have to add a set of very important words to the laws of limited liability. The words are with a duty of care to society. The duty of care to society. Look, we're all members of society and communities. Would we like companies to do things that we don't like in our communities and societies, even though that company gives us a paycheck? I think the answer is no. If every corporation stepped up to these challenges and did their part, I think we could make it easier for governments to do their part. I think this is a partnership.
You just went through a battle with an activist investor. It's now behind you. You talk about long-term getting consumers, but you also have Wall Street. You've got activist investors who are saying make short-term decisions. What kind of advice would you give to other people who are in your shoes to figure out how to deal with pressures to be very short-term focused?
First, have a crystal clear idea of where you want to take the company. I mean, this strategy, the vision for the company has got to be the most vivid picture that you can come up with. You've got to feel passionate about it and get your board behind you. Once you've done that, you've got the best supporters you'd ever want. And I had my board of directors. So if the board was not behind me, there's nothing that I can do. So any short-term investor that comes in and says, do something to benefit that investor in the short term, the board's not going to accept it. Absolutely not. And it's been proven out. Absolutely proven out. Look at our performance. It's been stellar only because we've been singularly focused on performance with purpose. And our key competitors who have not been focused on that are having their difficult times.
So you make your numbers, you get your board on board.
Absolutely, and just deliver. I mean, anybody who comes in and tries to perturb the organization, I told my company, I told my people, let me fight those battles with my CFO. You guys just focus on delivering performance consistent with performance and purpose. Just keep focusing on that. Let me fight everybody else.
Can you talk about what kind of a manager you are? Or do you like to get, how deep into the organization do you get? Are you someone who really loves to geek out on the 10-year plan? Do you want to know exactly what metrics are happening every day? Are you looking at hourly reports? How deep or how high do you like to go?
I am one of those people that does both.
Okay.
I wouldn't say hourly reports, but I would say I do get into the operations and I do fly high. So I love looking at the world and then what's the impact on PepsiCo and what's the strategic direction. But I am laser focused on the operations. And I'll tell you why, because the credibility of my long-term plan is also based on whether I can deliver numbers in the short term. So I'm operating on both sides. In fact, I'd go a step further and say, if today's CEOs are not able to do both, not able to talk to the front line and to world leaders, if they're not able to be tough and to have empathy, I don't know how you can be a CEO today. I think today's CEO, the challenges facing today's CEOs are so enormous. You've got to develop this capability to be, multiple personalities at the same time. That's the only way to do it.
I read another interview with you where you talked about the idea of centralizing Pepsi's operations. And is this something that you feel like multinationals need to do in general?
Most multinationals have already done it. We were the last to the game, okay? And it's not centralization, it's active coordination, two different issues. So for example, if you have a process to do something, like a new product development process, why can't we have the same process around the world? It's a simple thing. If you can make your backbones common across the world, it makes it easier to implement an ERP system. It makes it easier to develop data and common dashboards. It makes it easy for all the support functions like supply chain and R&D to understand how things are happening. If you don't do that, you add costs. So give you an example. In R&D, when I hired Mehmood Khan to head up our R&D department about 9 years ago, when he first came in, we didn't even have transparency and visibility to all the projects because each country did its own thing. And when he ultimately did put his hands around the projects, we had 2,500 R&D projects. Okay, fine, that's great. PepsiCo's got lots of ideas. That's one way to look at it. But here was the other way to look at it. On the same product, there were about 15 different development projects on a long neck bottle. But each development was different only by 1 millimeter. Now you sit there and you go, whether you sell 10,000 cases or 10 million cases, you have to do the same development work. Why would I encourage 8 projects to go on, which are 10,000 cases each? Instead of saying, hey, I've done one development which is going to sell 5 million cases, use the same bottle, it's only a 1 millimeter difference. We never did that. So what we've done through coordination of this company is strip out unnecessary costs through increased visibility and transparency. Now, let me give you the other side. If we continued the way we were, operating many years ago, why do we need a large company like PepsiCo? Let every country just do its own thing. And this world of food safety, traceability, governance, common standards, the digital world where nothing can remain in any country, it's critically important. We know what's going on.
How much do you worry about getting ahead of trends and whether people will come along?
I have the reverse problem. They're ahead of me. I have to catch up with them. Look at a farmer, okay? He's operating in a area where there's not enough water. He needs to water his potato crop. If he doesn't have enough water, he's not going to be able to grow potatoes to give it to me. Again, I want to buy the potatoes. So whether I like it or not, I have to put in a sustainable farming initiative where I teach that farmer how to farm differently, how to rainwater harvest, how to do irrigation that uses less water, spreads the water more evenly so that I get potatoes. So in a way, I'm trying to develop this virtuous circle where I keep the farmer healthy so that I can get the potatoes to do my business. So in a way, the global climate change issues have gotten ahead of me. Human rights activists have gotten ahead of me. Consumers with their health and wellness habits have gotten ahead of me. So I feel like I'm always catching up. So I'm not ahead. I'm catching up. The problem is many other companies are behind us. And I think that we need to run even faster to get there. Let me tell you who's ahead. NGOs are ahead of us, way ahead of us. That's why they're always holding companies accountable for certain goals. Multilateral organizations are in many ways ahead of us. And I just say consumers are ahead of us. When they start to eat healthier and exercise a lot more, we have to change. Dan, I tell you what we have to look at is secondary growth areas that could have an impact on us. If exercise equipment, Fitbits, membership in these exercise clubs are all growing, that's an early warning indicator that people are going to eat and drink differently. If people are beginning to consume products bought in different channels than the traditional grocery or convenience stores, you've got to worry about what kind of channels they are, whether it's a Whole Foods, Trader Joe's kind of channels, and what does it mean for our products. So we look at these. We look at school textbooks. What are schools allowing in their schools to be sold? Because that's an indication of what's coming, because these kids are going to grow up with different eating and drinking habits. So we look at all of these secondary issues.
Can you talk about how you look at those? You, I assume, you're doing channel checks, you're looking to see how your products are growing. Who on your team, or how do you make sure everyone is looking at these secondary metrics that might or might not matter to Pepsi?
We have social media listening people. I mean, people who go deep into social media, look at trends. We're looking at future of food, future of eating, future of drinking. We've got all these different agencies who are constantly mining social media, 2-3 levels with different tools to really tell us and inform us what the trends are and what we should expect over the next 3, 5, 10 years. And we're updating this almost on a, I would say, yearly basis, seriously, but in real time as these things happen. If children in schools are not drinking soda because the vending machine doesn't have it and is not allowed in school cafeterias, they are growing up in a generation without sodas. And the textbooks say don't drink it, all right? Then what happens? I've got to define the soda market differently and design a new soda which allows it to go into schools. You see, the challenge for me is different. I can't do that overnight. That's going to take 3 to 5 years because it's got to be approved by moms, approved by schools. It's got to have kids love it. That doesn't happen overnight.
You talk about there being a loss in faith in institutions and governments not having money, and you say that companies need to step in and fill the void. But what makes you think that consumers, that citizens are going to see companies as being forces for good, as not just doing things in their own best interest? And you go look at the recent report about saying that Pepsi tried to stop tax on sugary beverages as being one example of that. So how do companies not also lose the trust of the people?
There will always be critics, and I can't stop them. I tried, can't stop them. All that I tell you is only 12% of our revenues come from Pepsi. And our overall carbonated soft drink portfolio is like less than 25%. And almost 50% of our portfolio is what I call guilt-free products, either truly nutritious or below 70 calories per 12 ounce. So I feel very good about this portfolio, right? Let me start there. Second, people always question large companies, whether we like it or not. And we fund organizations to do research, yes. And in the short term, if we see taxes being implemented to raise revenue, not to address public health issues, we don't like it, because you don't simply tax a category willy-nilly just to raise revenue. If you're all addressing a health issue, obesity, it's a very complex issue. Let's address it holistically. I think the time has come to say the food and beverage industry, especially in the United States, is leaning in to do the right thing. What we need to talk about now is incentives to get them to change the portfolio. Can't happen overnight, over the next 3 to 5 years, rather than saying, let's just criticize them, let's just dump on them, because we are huge job creators, huge. We buy so much agricultural produce. We serve consumers everywhere. Let us figure out a way to give these companies tailwinds to shift their portfolio, consistent with what we've been saying with performance.
But the headlines are so easy to read, and you see everything's boiled down to one sentence. If you think the companies have to be leading the way for making the world a better place, how do you make sure that consumers realize that that's going on?
I think individually with our brands, consumers do realize it. They look at Quaker Oats or Naked Juice or Tropicana, they know we are doing that. When we did Pepsi Refresh, people realized that we are doing things to improve the world. Around the world, performance with purpose is much more explicitly associated with PepsiCo, and they know we're doing the right thing. So at this point, rather than trying to convince the world that we're doing the right thing, I think we just have to keep doing the right thing and hope that it catches up sometime, because there's only so much money to go around. Rather than doing big corporate marketing programs, we've chosen to put it right back into every one of these community programs, making sure our company itself provides a better portfolio of products and operates business in a sustainable way in every community, so people love us as opposed to throw us out.